Hey guys. Okay, so like 3 videos tonight. I know it's a lot. It's 8 after 11. I'm tired, and you're probably tired too. So, this is a, promise you, quick video. A little testimony I had about a music studio, recording studio. The Lord, one of the things that He had been telling me was that He was going to put me back in the recording studio, and I was like, and He's told me some other things too. I had been on radio and stuff like that before when I was doing my secular. Sorry, my legs were hurting, and I'm like stretching out my kneecaps. They hurt from trying to do these videos or whatever. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, he'd been telling me that he was going to put me back in the studio, and I had been on radio and done studio work and stuff like that before when I was pursuing my career more on a secular level. And I say secular, meaning as a songwriter, I never wrote dirt. Like my lyrics were always clean and stuff like that. It wasn't like secular, like some horrible sexual anything crazy, okay? I just mean, I was pursuing it like I had been on radio for like Clear Channel station here in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. You know, in other radio stations I had been doing interviews and things like that on, they weren't Christian radio stations, is what I'm saying. Anyways, whatever. The point is he had been telling me that he was going to put me, and the Lord would always let me get right to the end where I had a lot of stuff going with music deal, record deal, and stuff like that. I auditioned for that show, Nashville Star, which is kind of like the American Idol, but except it's for pop country. Anyway, and just a bunch of different stuff like that. And this is when I still had one foot with the Lord and one foot in the world. And God would let me get so far, and then He would yank me back from it. Well, He had been telling me that He was going to put me back in the recording studio, and I just took His word by faith. You know, like usual, that's really all you have with God is faith, until He makes something manifest. Well, anyway, I asked Him, this is before I got evicted, probably like a month and a half, 2 months before I got evicted. I was like, Lord, you know, I said, at that point, you got to remember, I could tell that financially speaking, things were getting worse and worse and worse. And, you know, rent was getting harder and harder to pay. And I was like, what is going to happen? Like, please tell me I'm not going to have to go through another scenario where I get evicted. Like, God, I just got evicted last year from my condo. Like, all these traumatic events keep happening since I gave up my career and followed after God. But also I've seen Him work many, 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 many miracles, okay? So I've seen a lot of both, okay? But anyway, He had been telling me that He was going to put me back in the recording studio, and I was like, Lord, this was about a month and a half to 2 months, probably a couple months maybe before I got evicted. I was like, Lord, there's so much going on, you know, money is starting to get like worse and worse and worse, financially speaking, you know, harder to pay rent, harder to pay the bills, you know, the car payment's getting further and further behind. I'm like, was I just deceived? I asked Him, I told Him, I was like, I feel like I was just deceived, like, maybe you didn't even, you know, maybe you allowed me to be deceived about the recording studio even. Maybe you weren't going to put me back in the recording studio. Because something I want you guys to know is, as a songwriter, a lyricist, if you are writing original music, you know, even if you're doing cover songs, you can put those things out there on like iTunes.com, Amazon.com, CD Baby, and websites like that, and you can actually sell your music. And especially if you're doing original work, like original songs, original praise and worship songs or whatever, you can sell that, you know, and that's part of a way that God could be providing, you know, for me financially speaking as I do ministry and stuff, because that also is ministry. I mean, because anything that I write or anything that I do at this point, my focus is always God, 24/7, literally. Okay, I go to bed thinking about God. I wake up thinking about God. I think about God in my sleep. I think about God. I mean, He's always in my heart and my mind, constantly. So, which also makes a person more vulnerable to attacks as well. And you probably already know that if He's also the love of your life. So, anyways, with that being said, I was like, Lord, was I just being deceived? Were you not really going to put me back in the recording studio? Like, did I hear you wrong on that? Because everything seems to be kind of falling apart again. He had also led me to a passage in the book of Job, and I think I shared this with you guys before, that talks about 6 times, will God have to save you from a catastrophe, but in the 7th time, the enemy will not be able to touch you or harm you. And he had led me to that several months before, and I was like, oh, Lord, please tell me you're not trying to give me... put it this way. He had given me a warning dream about what I'm going through right now. He'd given me a warning dream about 1.5 years ago. It was August of 2012. He gave me a warning dream, but I didn't know to how severe it was going to be. And even as early as the winter / spring of 2011... I'm sorry, 2012 and 2013, I started, even though the Lord was providing for me to be comfortable at that point. When I say comfortable, I don't mean rich at all. I mean, the bills are paid. Like, your main monthly bills are paid, and you have food on the table, and you can get a haircut if you need it, type thing. Or if, your jeans have like 10 holes in them, you can go get a pair of jeans. I'm not talking about going and buying 5 Coach purses but I'm not talking about crazy things, okay? I'm just talking about just barely, just above board, Well, anyway, and God... Okay, let me not get off track. Let me just go back, because God has blessed me too, okay? When I got evicted from my condo, and they had thrown everything out of my lawn. You want to talk about a humbling experience. And some of my furniture got broken and stuff like that. And God had also provided for me to be able to replace some of that. I went to like a discount furniture place and found some like really pretty, some pretty stuff to replace it for really inexpensive. But God did that for me. So I'm just saying, He's been faithful, okay? But that doesn't mean that this faith walk is easy, okay? So, anyway, I was like, Lord, was I just being deceived about that? Because I could already see that financially things were getting harder and harder. And you guys, within the second that came out of my mouth, because I was like, I just feel like I've just been deceived. I was like, obviously, I was feeling frustrated that day. I was like, I obviously never hear from God. I'm obviously just being deceived, blah, blah, blah. I was having a complaining day type thing. And, I mean, it is what it is. We're all human. And the second that came out of my mouth, my phone went off. And I had gotten a text from somebody that I grew up with in the 5th grade. And I've known him since I was in 5th grade. I don't know what age you are in 5th grade. I don't remember. But 10 maybe? And I just turned 41 in February, so 31 years, I guess. Anyway, I had not heard from him in 2 years, and he sends me a text, and he was like, hey there. He goes, I know it's been like 2 years since we've talked. Now, he is a medical doctor, and the Lord had led him to buy some land kind of out in the woods where he would be pretty much off the grid for the end time stuff, because he feels as though that property or that housing may be necessary or important for God to protect some people during the time of the Great Tribulation that are still here on the earth, which I hopefully will not be, but you never know what God has planned for your future. That's why he tells us to leave Babylon and don't keep living out in the world, and come back and be with the Lord and give him your heart and let him, wash us and purify us and sanctify us so that we can be found worthy to escape all these things. But through his righteousness, of course. But anyway, I got a text, like the second that I said that, I got a text, and he was like, I know it's been like 2 years since we've talked. He goes, but listen, the Lord has blessed me with some funding, with some money. And he goes, I want to purchase, if you're interested, he goes, I want to purchase an entire recording studio, like a mini recording studio, which would entail a desktop computer with all the programs on it, a really nice, good studio microphone with a condenser, and just all of the the speakers and the heads, just everything that would go along with having a mini production studio in your home. And I had literally just got done saying, Lord, was I not hearing you right? Did you not really tell me that? Was I just being deceived? I mean, like, the second I got done saying that, I get a text on my phone saying, hey, I know we haven't talked in 2 years, but the Lord has given me some extra funding, and God has led me to purchase a recording studio, and I want to put it in your home if you're interested. And what he goes, what I want to do is I want to co-write with you. I can write the music. He goes, I'm more of the musician, and I need somebody that can write lyrics. Well, that works out perfectly for me because I'm more of a lyricist, and I need, I don't do my own production. I never have. Any studio work I've ever done, I've always had someone to write the music, and I write the lyrics, and someone to do the production work, which I definitely know nothing about, okay? Because as you guys can see from my videos, I don't even edit my own videos because I don't really know how to do that kind of stuff. It's just not my cup of tea, okay? But he has the skills to produce, and also to get all the licensing and to get the publishing rights. Because when you sell your music on like Amazon or CD Baby or iTunes, especially if it's originals or whatever, you've got to be registered with like either BMI or ASCAP, and because you want to make sure that no one is taking your work, you get copyrights and all that kind of stuff. And he has the ability and the know-how to do all that stuff. So here I had just said, Lord, was I being deceived? Like, was I not really being, led in that direction? Is that not really what you were telling me? And the next thing I know, within a second, my phone goes off, and my 30-some-year-old, my friend from 30 years that I grew up with, that I hadn't talked to in 2 years, is texting me saying, hey, God has given me some extra funding, and I feel totally led to use it because there's a gift from God, and so I want it to be totally used for God's purpose and for His kingdom. And I wanted to know if you're interested in writing with me and co-writing. And, and I said, well, here's the deal. I don't really tell this to too many people, but I guess I feel like I can go ahead and tell you guys. And I'm speaking this out by faith, but the Lord had been giving me a lot of inclination also that He was going to be putting me back on radio again. But this time, rather than it would be like, the Clear Channel stations I had been on before, like one of them, there's like 3.5 million listeners to that channel. But that's when I was, like I said, kind of 1 foot in the world, 1 foot with the Lord. This time around, He's definitely made it clear it would be Christian radio. And that doesn't mean that God couldn't take one of our songs and kind of have it cross over so that it reached more people in the world. But His focus for me would be Christian radio. He's made that real clear. He didn't let me stray far, is what I'm trying to say. So even if I wanted to stray and go back into the world, I can guarantee you God would never let that happen. It'd be like a parent. I mean, when you're a parent to a child, you love them, you keep them protected. You have ways. I mean, haven't we all as parents looked at our children and been like, there are just certain things that I've told my son, like when it comes to like dating one day or whatever, like I'm like the FBI. Like, FYI, we're going to keep it clean. We're going to do it God's way or the highway or no way. You know what I'm saying? And parents have ways of making sure that their kids know, I got my eyes on you. You know what I'm saying? And they're not going to beat them. I'm watching you. That's all I need to say about that. Okay? Because my son is my son for a reason. God gave him to us for a reason. And it's our job to protect them and to love them. And he's been in Christian school since preschool, and he's in the 8th grade now. And glory to God, he is an amazing, amazing young man. But he's still a child, and he's still my child. And it's my job to protect him. And I, of course, can only take, in other words, like, obviously I have to trust God with him. And that's obvious. But I'm just saying, God gave your children parents for a reason, you guys, okay? You're not supposed to be their best friend more than you're supposed to be their parent. You're supposed to be their parent first. And that's just a little bit of, encouragement that sometimes I know our kids like to talk to us like we're just their friends, but we are their parents. But anyway, whatever, that's random. Okay, back to the music. So I had just been like thinking that I had been maybe deceived, and then the Lord was like, I'm going to show you just how much deceived you're not. Okay, and like literally within that second, I got a text on my phone saying, hey, I not only want to buy an entire recording studio for you, but he goes, I want to put it in your home, and I want to co-write with you, and I'll get all the publishing rights, everything, and maybe, God willing, whatever doors God opens for churches and for radio and things like that, we'll have to see what God does. And so that was God's way of confirming with me. At that exact moment that I spoke it to God, he confirmed it with me that moment. God does work with me a lot like that sometimes. Sometimes, like I said, he gives me prophetic dreams, and they come true the very next day. And then sometimes they don't come true until like a year later, or 6 months later, or 2 years later. One time he gave me dreams 6 or 7 years ago, and it's kind of what I've been going through for the last 2.5 years. And 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't know what I didn't really understand. I knew it was prophetic. I knew it was profound, that I was pretty much blown away, like, oh my goodness, this is probably the most important dream I've ever had in my life, and you just know that you know that you know it's from God. But I didn't really have an understanding of it until the last 2.5 years, when I have been in this fire of God's purification. There's a scripture and a passage in Isaiah that says, when I try you, I'm not trying you as silver, I'm trying you as gold. And that means you're going to be in the furnace of affliction. And that means that you're going to have to be in the hottest of the hottest flame. And when you're going through that kind of a purification with God, and there are different levels of purification, when you're going through that hottest of the hottest fire, it's going to hurt. Okay, where my life is right now, and being evicted, and having to go through these humiliating experiences, and having to totally depend on everything by faith, and this, that, and the other. It hurts. It's not easy. But God is doing the work, and so all we can do is let him do the work. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily easy for us to take. So that's that. That's my testimony about the music studio. The thing is since I was getting ready to be evicted, obviously this person and myself decided clearly it wouldn't make any sense, it would not be wise for you to set up a studio in my apartment when I'm on the verge of being evicted. So once we figure out where and when and how God's going to deliver me, and if he's going to put me in a home, a house, he's given me a dream about this kind of thing. I know he's going to deliver me. I don't believe that. I know he wants me to believe that. And all I can do is speak it out in faith. But how he's going to do it, when he's going to do it, I don't know. He's given me hints as to the time frame. And it's somewhat in the near future. But it's like, I can't know exactly what God's going to do. I don't even know what God's going to do 5 minutes from now. That's between God and himself. Okay? All I can do is hope and pray and plead that he rescues me as soon as possible. Because I cannot wait to get out of this nightmare. I love you, and I'm actually going to make one more video. I can't believe I'm saying that. That's like 4 videos, and none of them are music. But it's going to be a super, super quick snippet about my channel and the direction of my channel and what God has been telling me about my channel. So, love you. I pray that this blessed you, that it is possible to hear from the Lord. It is possible to draw closer to him. It is possible to be in communication with the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings and the God of the universe that created heaven and earth. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not. A lot of times people say, well, how do you know? Well, you have to get to know. You have to learn when it's the Lord and when it's the enemy. And sometimes you can't always tell.